I never imagined that our fifth wedding anniversary would be the day everything fell apart, but life has a funny way of flipping the script when you least expect it. My wife Emily and I had been together for almost a decade, and while I wouldn't say everything was perfect, we had our routines. We made it through the usual ups and downs of married life, financial struggles, work stress, the occasional argument about where to place the sofa. But we loved each other, or so I thought. Leading up to our anniversary, I noticed some subtle changes in Emily. She was more irritable than usual, often snapping at me over trivial things like the way I loaded the dishwasher. The late nights at work turned into I have to catch up on some things, which I accepted at face value. Relationships require trust, and I trusted Emily. But deep down, something felt off, a nagging sensation in the pit of my stomach that I couldn't quite shake off. On the morning of our anniversary, I woke up excited. I had planned a romantic dinner at our favorite restaurant where we had celebrated our first date. I even bought her a beautiful sapphire necklace as a gift which perfectly matched her eyes. As I got ready, I could feel the anticipation bubbling within me. But when I finally presented her with the necklace, her reaction was not what I expected. Instead of joy, I saw a flicker of something else, guilt perhaps. It was fleeting, but it was there. Later that evening, as we sat at the restaurant, I tried to brush off the uneasiness. But it was hard to ignore the way she kept glancing at her phone. I could hardly enjoy my meal watching her scroll through messages with a faint smile. I asked her if everything was all right, and she assured me it was just work-related. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something else was brewing beneath the surface. When we got home, Emily excused herself, saying she needed to take a shower. I decided to tidy up the living room while she was in there, and that's when I stumbled upon it, the evidence. Her phone was sitting on the coffee table face up, and a message popped up from a contact named Alex. In that moment, my heart dropped. Curiosity got the better of me. I picked up the phone and without thinking I unlocked it. What I found shattered my world. The messages were flirtatious, filled with inside jokes and references to secret meetings. The final message sent chills down my spine. "Can't wait to see you tonight, babe. Our special place." My hands trembled as I read each word, a sickening wave of betrayal washing over me. I put the phone down, my mind racing. I felt a mixture of anger and heartbreak, the kind that wraps around your chest and squeezes until you can't breathe. I knew I had to confront her, but part of me wanted to give her the chance to come clean before I exploded with fury. When she emerged from the bathroom, I was ready. "Emily, we need to talk," I said, my voice steady but laced with emotion. Her eyes widened, and for a brief moment I saw the fear that flickered across her face. "What's wrong?" she asked, feigning innocence. I couldn't let her slip away with that. I held up her phone, the words still fresh in my mind. "Who is Alex?" The silence that followed felt like an eternity. Her face transformed, and suddenly the woman I thought I knew was gone, replaced by a defensive stranger. "What are you talking about? That's just a work friend," she stammered, trying to play it off. I pressed further. "A work friend who calls you babe. Don't lie to me, Emily." The confrontation spiraled into a chaotic exchange filled with accusations, denials, and anger. She claimed it was harmless, that she was just being friendly, but I could see the lies dripping from her tongue like poison. As the reality of her betrayal sunk in, the emotional roller coaster hit me harder than I could have imagined. I felt the anger burning inside me, mixed with an overwhelming sense of loss. How could she do this to us? How could I have been so blind? I had decisions to make, but for now, all I could feel was the weight of betrayal pressing down on my chest, my wedding anniversary ruined, and my heart shattered. The chaos of that night settled into a tense silence after our confrontation. I could barely comprehend what I was feeling, a cocktail of rage, disbelief, and deep sorrow. Emily, who had once been my partner, now felt like a stranger standing across from me. It was as if the air had thickened with unspoken truths and shattered trust. She was still trying to defend herself, her tone shifting from defensive to desperate. "You don't understand. It was just a stupid thing, a mistake. I didn't mean to hurt you." Her pleas fell like lead in the pit of my stomach. How many times had I heard that line in movies? It felt cheap. It felt like a betrayal on top of betrayal. I couldn't take it anymore. I paced the small living room, my thoughts racing. A mistake. So you just accidentally texted him, "Can't wait to see you tonight, babe." The bitterness in my voice was palpable. What exactly do you think I'm supposed to do with that? Emily looked down at her feet. The bravado she had moments ago crumbled. I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't mean for it to go this far. She finally let the mask slip, and I could see the guilt, the fear, perhaps even the realization of what she had lost. But I couldn't let her guilt be my consolation. I needed clarity, and this was just the start of a long and painful unraveling. How long has this been going on? How many times have you met him? The questions spilled out, each one like a dagger aimed at the heart of what we had built together. I don't know, a couple of months, it just happened. She confessed, her eyes brimming with tears. I was feeling lonely, and things between us, they just weren't the same anymore. She wiped her eyes, but the damage was done. Loneliness. I felt a wave of despair wash over me, mixed with anger. Did she think that was an excuse? As I stood there, I felt a rush of emotions that I couldn't control. The shock had morphed into a burning need for revenge. I could hear myself saying things I never thought I would. "You think you can just throw our marriage away? You think you can betray me and come back with tears and expect me to forgive you? I was wrong. I know that now." She cried out, trying to bridge the chasm that had opened between us. But I was done listening to her excuses. She had taken a knife to our vows, and now she stood there expecting me to hand her a bandage. I turned away, my thoughts racing. I felt like a man on a cliff, staring into the abyss of my new reality. I needed to think. I needed a plan. But above all, I needed her to feel what I felt. I wanted her to understand the gravity of her actions, to suffer just as I was suffering. I was no longer just the hurt husband. I was a man who had been wronged and whose love had been cast aside like an old coat. The next few days were a blur of emotions. I had taken a few days off work. I didn't have the mental capacity to deal with my job when my entire world had crashed down around me. Emily tried to reach me, to salvage what little was left of our relationship, but I kept my distance. I ignored her calls and texts, and I spent hours contemplating my next move. In those quiet hours of solitude, I thought about our wedding, the promises we made. I thought about how I had stood before our friends and family, vowing to love and cherish her. Those memories now felt like a cruel joke. The love that had once filled our home now echoed with betrayal and resentment. I started to envision a plan, a way to make her understand the depth of her betrayal. It wasn't enough to just hurt. She needed to feel the weight of her choices in a way that cut deep. It was a dark thought, but in that moment it became a lifeline, a way to regain control in a situation where I felt utterly powerless. I began by gathering my evidence. I saved screenshots of her messages, each one a reminder of the lies she had spun. I wanted to confront her with the reality of what she had done, not just with her words but with irrefutable proof. I'd show her that she hadn't just hurt me, she had tarnished the love we had built for nearly a decade. With each passing day, I felt the anger simmering below the surface. I wasn't a vengeful person by nature, but the betrayal felt like a wound that demanded retaliation. I wouldn't let her walk away unscathed. I planned to ruin our anniversary, the one she had so carelessly tarnished. As I set my plan into motion, I could feel a twisted sense of satisfaction. I was still heartbroken, but perhaps revenge would give me the closure I desperately sought. I would show her that actions have consequences, that every choice carries weight. And maybe, just maybe, I could reclaim a piece of myself in the process. As the days stretched into a week, I felt like I was living in a fog of betrayal and anger. The reality of Emily's infidelity was still fresh, a wound that seemed to throb with every passing moment. I had been battling between my desire for revenge and the remnants of love that still lingered within me. The plan I had begun to concoct was taking shape, a brewing storm that I hoped would bring some form of justice to this chaotic situation. I knew I had to execute my plan carefully. I didn't want to act out of pure rage. I wanted to make sure that my revenge was calculated, impactful, and left a lasting impression. I decided that I would throw a party on what would have been our anniversary, inviting our closest friends and family. I wanted to showcase the life we had built together, only to rip it apart in a way that Emily would never forget. I started reaching out to friends, texting them with vague invitations to a casual get-together. I told them it would be a celebration of sorts, something to lift my spirits after a tough few weeks. The truth was, I was excited to show them the real Emily, the one who betrayed me, who treated our vows like mere words. As I set the date for the party, I couldn't help but think about how Emily would react. Would she try to cancel? Would she show up in denial, pretending nothing was wrong? I felt a thrill of anticipation as the date approached. I made sure to keep Emily in the dark, acting as if everything was fine. I even suggested we do something special for our anniversary. She was confused but agreed, and I relished in the fact that she had no idea what was coming. The day of the party arrived, and I spent the afternoon setting up the house. I decorated with balloons and streamers, creating an atmosphere that felt celebratory yet tinged with an undercurrent of tension. As the clock ticked closer to the start time, I prepared myself for what was about to unfold. When our friends began to arrive, I greeted them with a smile that masked the turmoil boiling beneath the surface. I introduced everyone, and Emily walked in, her eyes lighting up with surprise. "What's all this?" she asked, looking genuinely happy for the first time in what felt like forever. "Just a little celebration," I replied, trying to conceal my glee. The alcohol flowed, laughter filled the air, and for a while I let myself bask in the joy of being surrounded by friends. Emily mingled, completely oblivious to the trap I was setting. After everyone had settled in, I decided it was time to execute the final part of my plan. I gathered the group into the living room, a sense of anticipation electrifying the atmosphere. I stood up and raised my glass, a gesture that drew everyone's attention. "Thank you all for coming tonight. I really needed this, and it means a lot to have friends like you in my life." I began, my voice steady though inside I was a bundle of nerves. "But I'd like to make this evening a little more special. I want to share something that's been weighing heavily on my heart." Confusion swept through the room as I pulled out my phone, the one I had filled with evidence of Emily's betrayal. I had recorded various conversations, had screenshots ready to display. I could feel the energy in the room shift, an undercurrent of tension gripping us all. As I started to reveal the messages, the room fell silent. "This," I said, swiping through the screenshots, "is what my wife has been up to while pretending to be committed to me." The gasps and whispers that erupted around the room felt electric. I could see Emily's face pale as she realized what was happening. "Emily, why don't you tell our friends about your work friend Alex?" I challenged, my voice rising above the murmurs. She looked like a deer caught in headlights, her expression shifting from shock to disbelief. "This is ridiculous. You can't do this," she shouted, her voice a mix of anger and desperation, but I pressed on, ignoring her protests. "You made a choice, Emily. You chose to betray me and our marriage. This is the reality of what you did, and now everyone knows." The faces of our friends reflected a mix of shock and pity, and I could feel Emily's embarrassment radiating through the room. "Stop this, it's not what it seems," she pleaded, but the damage was done. The truth hung heavy in the air, and I could see the weight of it crashing down upon her. "I trusted you," I said, my voice softer now but still firm. "I loved you, and you threw that away for what? A fling." I gestured to the gathered friends. "You wanted to ruin our anniversary. Well, this is what it feels like to have your special day ruined." The room was silent, the weight of the revelation settling in. I could see the shame on her face, and while part of me felt a twisted sense of satisfaction, another part felt the sting of sorrow. I was losing the person I had once loved, not just to betrayal, but to the chaos that followed. As the party began to dissolve into whispers and hushed conversations, I turned my back on Emily. I'd done what I set out to do, and while I felt a fleeting sense of victory, I was also engulfed in sadness. I had ruined our anniversary, but the real loss was far deeper than a single day. I was left with the emptiness of a love that had turned into a battlefield, and I wasn't sure how to navigate the aftermath. The aftermath of the party was a blur of emotions, a chaotic whirlpool that left me feeling drained and lost. I had executed my plan, seeking revenge for the betrayal that had cut deep into my heart. I had exposed Emily in front of our friends, and while I felt a momentary thrill of satisfaction, it quickly faded into a heavy blanket of regret. After the guests left, the house was eerily quiet. The balloons that had once seemed festive now hung limply, a reflection of how deflated I felt inside. I had painted a vivid picture of Emily's betrayal, but in doing so, I had also painted a picture of our broken relationship. The reality of what I had done began to sink in, and I felt a sense of emptiness I hadn't anticipated. Emily didn't say a word. As she cleaned up the remnants of the party, I could see the tears welling in her eyes, but I didn't let myself feel pity. Part of me wanted to confront her again, to lay bare every wound she had inflicted on me, but the other part, perhaps the more rational part, told me to let the silence linger. Finally, she broke the silence. "I can't believe you did that," she said, her voice trembling. "You humiliated me in front of everyone." "It's exactly what you deserve," I replied coldly, trying to maintain my resolve. "You've been lying to me for months. You've been sleeping with another man while pretending to be my wife. There's nothing humiliating about revealing the truth." "But this isn't just about you," she countered, her frustration boiling over. "What about us? What about everything we've built? You think this is how you fix things?" I chuckled bitterly. "Fix things? You think I want to fix this? You ruined it, Emily. You made your choice, and this is the consequence." The air was thick with tension, and I could feel the walls closing in as the reality of our situation settled over us like a heavy fog. I had felt empowered when I exposed her, but now, as I watched her crumble, I couldn't help but feel the weight of the damage we had done to each other. Emily paced the living room, her hands running through her hair in frustration. "What do you want from me?" she finally asked, desperation creeping into her voice. "I want you to feel the pain you've caused me," I said, my voice steady but laced with emotion. "I want you to understand that your actions have consequences. You can't just waltz back into my life as if nothing happened." "I get it," she shouted, her voice raw with emotion. "I messed up. I made a horrible mistake. Can't we at least talk about this like adults?" "Talk about what?" I shot back. "You've done irreparable damage. You want to talk? What would that accomplish? You've shattered my trust. I can't just sweep this under the rug and pretend everything is okay." Emily fell silent, her shoulders slumping as she finally seemed to grasp the gravity of the situation. She sank onto the couch, the weight of the world pressing down on her. I stood there feeling torn. I had wanted revenge, but now I was faced with the fallout of that revenge. After a few moments of silence, Emily looked up at me, her eyes red and puffy. "I don't know how we got here," she murmured, her voice breaking. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I was feeling lost. I thought I could find something outside of our marriage that was missing." "Lost?" I asked incredulously. "You thought cheating was the answer. You could have talked to me. We could have worked on things together." "I know," she cried, her voice rising again. "But it happened so fast. I was stupid, and I'm so sorry. I know it doesn't mean anything now, but I never wanted to hurt you." Her apologies felt empty, like an echo of a love that had already withered. I wanted to believe her, to somehow reconcile the person I knew with the person who had betrayed me, but every time I looked at her, I saw the choices she had made. "I don't think I can trust you again," I admitted, my voice low, "and I don't know if I can forgive this." Emily nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I don't expect you to. I wouldn't blame you if you wanted to walk away. I've destroyed everything and I can't take it back." I felt a pang of sadness wash over me. The woman who had stood beside me through so many life challenges was now a shadow of herself, consumed by guilt and shame. But that didn't change the reality of what had happened. I had wanted her to suffer, and she was suffering, but it felt bittersweet. As the silence stretched between us again, I felt the burden of decision weighing heavily on my shoulders. I needed to decide whether to attempt to salvage what remained of our marriage or to cut my losses and move on. The thought of rebuilding trust felt insurmountable, and I knew that every corner of our relationship had been stained by her actions. I thought about the life we had built together, our shared dreams, the laughter, the love. Could I ever look at her the same way again? Or was I destined to remember her not as the woman I loved, but as the woman who shattered my heart? "I need time," I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper, Time to think about everything. I don't know what the future holds for us, but I can't just jump to forgiveness. Emily's expression crumbled further as I watched realization dawn upon her. I understand, she said quietly, wiping her tears. I'll give you space. I hope you find a way to forgive me. As she left the room, the silence returned, heavier than before. I felt a sense of loss creeping in, a realization that even in my quest for revenge, I had lost the person I had once called my wife. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with questions I was not ready to answer. All I knew was that my heart was shattered, and healing would take far longer than I had anticipated. The days that followed felt like an eternity, each one stretching into the next, a monotonous cycle of confusion and heartache. Emily and I had retreated into our respective corners of the house, the once warm and bustling atmosphere now replaced by an oppressive silence. I could hear her moving around, but we hardly exchanged words, let alone glances. The weight of our shared pain hung in the air, thick and suffocating. I spent countless nights lying awake, my mind racing with thoughts of betrayal and loss. I replayed everything in my head, from our wedding vows to the moment I discovered her messages. That feeling of betrayal was a constant ache, the kind that gnawed at my insides, reminding me of the love that felt irreparably broken. I felt angry at Emily for her choices, but I also felt angry at myself for not seeing the signs sooner. During the day, I buried myself in work, hopping to distract myself from the turmoil within. But no matter how hard I tried to keep my focus, memories of our life together invaded my thoughts. I replayed moments of laughter, intimacy, and dreams we had shared. Those memories felt tainted now, each one a reminder of the trust that had been shattered. One evening, after a particularly exhausting day, I found myself sitting on the back porch, staring at the stars. The night was quiet, and for a moment I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I thought about the future. What would it look like without Emily? Could I really walk away from everything we had built? The thought terrified me more than the idea of staying. As I sat there lost in thought, Emily emerged quietly, her eyes red from crying. She stood a few feet away as if afraid to intrude upon my solitude. "Can I join you?" she asked softly, her voice barely above a whisper. I hesitated but eventually nodded, allowing her to sit beside me. The silence stretched out again, but it felt different this time. There was a weight in the air, an understanding that we were both grappling with our own pain and sadness. "Can we talk?" Emily ventured, glancing at me with a mixture of hope and fear. I sighed, the exhaustion of the past week flooding back. "I don't know what you want to talk about, Emily. What's left to say?" Her eyes fell to the ground and she took a deep breath. "I know I messed up. I know I destroyed everything. I've been thinking about what you said, that actions have consequences. I never thought I would be the person to do something like this, but I was so lost. When I started talking to Alex, it felt like I was trying to escape from everything that was wrong in our marriage instead of facing it. Her honesty hit me harder than I expected. I had been so wrapped up in my own hurt that I hadn't considered her perspective. "And what about now? What do you want?" I asked, my voice steady. "Do you want to fix this? Do you think it's even possible?" "I don't know," she admitted, her voice trembling. "I wish I could take it back, but I can't. I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I realize that I need to face what I've done, not just to you, but to myself. I was running away from the issues we had instead of addressing them together." I felt a flicker of something, perhaps empathy, perhaps anger, but it was quickly overshadowed by my own pain. "Emily, it's going to take much more than just words to fix this. You hurt me in a way I never thought possible. I can't just forget about it." "I don't expect you to," she said, her voice breaking. "I just want you to know that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make it right. I don't want to lose you. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I hope one day you can find it in your heart to at least give us another chance." Her sincerity was palpable, and I could see the remorse etched on her face. But still, the prospect of rebuilding felt daunting. "Emily, trust doesn't just come back. It's not something you can wish for. It has to be earned, rebuilt piece by piece. And right now, I don't even know if I want to try." What she said next surprised me. "Then let me show you. Let me prove to you that I can change, that I can be the partner you deserve. I don't want to rush you into anything, but I'm willing to give you space and time to think it over." I contemplated her words, feeling the weight of the decision I had to make. Could I really allow myself to trust her again? Part of me wanted to believe that people could change, that love could endure even the worst. Betrayals, but another part of me, the part that was still raw and hurting, screamed that I should walk away. Let's take it one step at a time, I finally said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. I can't promise anything, but maybe we can try to communicate better. I'm not saying we'll work it out, but I'm willing to explore the possibility, even if it's just a small one. Emily nodded, her expression a mixture of relief and gratitude. I'll do whatever it takes, I promise. As we sat there together under the stars, I felt a flicker of hope. It was faint, barely a whisper in the back of my mind, but it was there nonetheless. Perhaps this was the path we needed to take, one of honesty, communication, and rebuilding. It wouldn't be easy, and the road ahead would be filled with challenges, but for the first time since discovering her betrayal, I felt the tiniest glimmer of something new. It was the realization that love, while fragile, could also be resilient if both people were willing to fight for it. As I took a deep breath, I knew the journey ahead would be long and fraught with emotions, but maybe, just maybe, we could find a way to navigate it together. The weeks that followed our conversation felt surreal, like I was walking a tightrope between hope and despair. Emily and I began to communicate more openly, a stark contrast to the silence that had engulfed our home after the revelation of her affair. It was painstakingly slow, and there were days when I felt myself slipping back into the shadows of anger and betrayal, but I also noticed a flicker of something resembling healing. Emily did her best to show me she was committed to making amends. She began attending therapy, a move I had suggested, and while I couldn't be there to witness her journey, I hoped it was helping her confront her demons. I often found myself wondering what she was learning and how it was changing her perspective. We started to put ourselves in situations where we could talk without the heaviness of our past looming over us. Casual evenings on the porch turned into deeper conversations about our dreams, fears, and what had led us to this point. I learned to voice my frustrations without letting anger take over, and she learned to listen without defensiveness. It was a difficult balance, but we were both committed to trying. Yet, despite the progress, the specter of her betrayal hung over our relationship. There were moments, especially late at night, when the memory of her infidelity would seep into my mind, causing a knot in my stomach. I found myself questioning her actions and intentions. When she left her phone unlocked or stepped out for a run, I felt a pang of anxiety. Would she stray again? Would I ever be able to fully trust her? One evening, as we sat across from each other at the dinner table, I finally brought up my fears. I'm trying, Emily, I really am, but I keep thinking about what happened. I don't want to keep feeling like this. I want to move on, but it's hard. She looked at me, her expression earnest. I understand. I can't expect you to just forget what I did. I can't forget it either. But I want you to know that I'm putting in the work to be better, for myself and for us. I want to show you that I'm serious about this. As she spoke, I could see the determination in her eyes. It reminded me of the woman I fell in love with, the one who had always been there for me during my darkest times. I wanted to believe that she was capable of change, but doubt still gnawed at me. Can you tell me about your sessions? I asked cautiously, testing the waters. Emily nodded, her expression softening. Sure. It's been hard to confront my feelings, but I'm learning a lot about myself. I've realized that my actions were a reflection of my own insecurities and fears. I've spent so much time running away from problems instead of facing them. I don't want to do that anymore. Her vulnerability struck a chord within me. I wanted to support her, to understand the journey she was undertaking. I appreciate you sharing that with me, I said, trying to keep my tone gentle. I want to be there for you, but I need you to be honest about everything. It's the only way we're going to get through this. Absolutely, she replied, her voice steady. I promise to be open with you. I know I've broken your trust, but I want to rebuild it. I want us to be stronger together. Over time, I began to feel a shift. The anger that had consumed me started to loosen its grip, replaced by a cautious willingness to move forward. I still had moments of doubt, but they became less frequent as we continued to work on our communication. We even began to integrate small rituals back into our lives, like movie nights and spontaneous outings, little reminders of the joy we once shared. One particular day, we decided to revisit the place where we had celebrated our first date. The restaurant was the same, but so much had changed. I felt a mixture of nostalgia and apprehension as we walked through the familiar doors. As we sat down, I couldn't help but reflect on how far we had come and how far we still had to go. Emily took my hand, her touch warm and reassuring. "Whatever happens, I want you to know that I'm grateful for this chance," she said, her eyes locking onto mine. "I know I messed up, but I'm committed to proving to you that I can be the partner you deserve." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words. "And I'm willing to work on trusting you again, but it's going to take time. I need to see that you're serious about this." "I understand. I'll do whatever it takes," she promised. As we enjoyed our meal, a sense of calm washed over me, a feeling I hadn't experienced in a long time. It was as if a new chapter of our lives was beginning, one that was still fraught with uncertainty but also filled with potential. In that moment, I realized that while my heart had been shattered, it was also capable of mending. Love wasn't merely about perfection. It was about resilience and the willingness to fight for what really mattered. As we left the restaurant, hand in hand, I felt a glimmer of hope for the future, a future where we could navigate the intricacies of love and forgiveness together. Though the road ahead would undoubtedly be challenging, I was ready to face it with Emily by my side, taking each step forward together, one day at a time.